Right, time to discuss some of the big stories that are in the news today. Andrew Neil and Camilla Tominey join us. Andrew Neil's in the studio.
I know!
What a joy.
What a treat
What
to
a
have
pleasure
you
to
here.
see you.
It really is lovely to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
We've been zooming ever since
Zooming
the
off
beginning
for almost a year now.
Lockdown, yeah. So it's lovely to have you
Great.
here.
Well, let's start off with a first story here. And this is the Queen, who becomes the latest victim of cancel culture as a portrait is removed from an Oxford college. And this is students that voted to remove the picture after claiming it represented an unwelcome symbol of recent colonial history. Apparently, it's gone into storage. This was a democratic vote, and away she goes.
Away she goes. It's a kind of silly season story, isn't it? I mean, it isn't even the college. It's something called the Middle Common Room of postgraduate students. Probably about 6 of them. I mean, we wouldn't be talking about this if it wasn't Oxford or Cambridge. Whatever happens in Oxford and Cambridge seems to matter to the media. It doesn't matter to anybody else. Whatever these postgraduate numpties have done, they've not done history. Because, no, I mean, I'm not a great royalist at all. I'm not a huge fan of the royal family. But no one has done more than the Queen to turn what was the empire into the Commonwealth. And the Commonwealth is one of the greatest multiracial, diverse institutions in the world. I mean, the Queen even sided with the Commonwealth against Margaret Thatcher when she was Prime Minister in favour of sanctions against apartheid South Africa. So to associate the Queen with colonialism is just bizarre.
Yeah.
Camilla.
I agree with Andrew. I think it's utterly idiotic, and it's kind of depressing when you consider that the people that go to that college are meant to be the brightest minds in the country. Yes, she's done more than many other people for the Commonwealth, but equally at 95 and about to celebrate her Platinum Jubilee next year, and with everything that she's contributed to public life, I see no problem whatsoever in her portrait hanging in any building in the UK, frankly, or indeed across the Commonwealth, as it does.
Well, the president of the MCR, Matthew Katzman, said to The Telegraph, it's been taken down. It was decided to leave the Common Room neutral. That's what this was all about. The college will have plenty of depictions of various things, but the Common Room is meant to be a space for all to feel welcome, except the Queen.
The Queen is neutral. She's our head of state.
Yeah.
She's neutral to politics. She's neutral to issues. She's just our head of state, that's all. And, you know, I mean, you can be a bit of a questioning of royalty, like me. The one thing you can't do is question the Queen. I mean, she has just been amazing. She's kept the show on the road through thick and thin.
She has. She's kept the show on the road. She's also a great-grandmother, again, to Lilibet, Lily, Diana Mountbatten Windsor. And if we are hearing reports that she got to meet her over Zoom for the first time. Is that right, Camilla?
Well, so we're hearing, although there's a bit of confusion this morning as to the kind of sequence of events with regard to this little baby being named Lilibet. So on one hand, there were suggestions, I think, in the Times earlier this week that the Queen had been consulted about the name. Then the BBC reported that, in fact, she hadn't. And then the Sussexes have pushed back on that and said, no, the Queen knew all along. And we're trying to pick through all this. But I think there is a sense that, although she may have been informed after the baby was born, she wasn't exactly asked to give her permission for the name Lilibet. Whether this is problematic or not is probably a moot point. It's a lovely name, shortened to Lily, which is probably bringing it a bit more up to date and into the 21st century. But it was the intimate nickname that the Queen has had for years that was used by her grandfather, George V, by her parents, by her sister, Princess Margaret, and agreed by Prince Philip. So I'm sure she's touched, but it's quite an unusual choice, and it has created quite a debate on social media in recent days.
So another debate on social media. This time it's a name.
Probably surprise you both. But I'm not totally across the story. I've not paid too much attention to this story. I've had other more important things to do. I'm very glad, though, that Prince Harry's decided to take a long time off. I mean, I'm not sure what he's taking time off from, because I don't really know what he does, but it's very good that he's going to take a lot of paternity leave. I'm slightly surprised, because I thought that he thought that his parents and his grandparents were useless parents. That seems to be the message he's been telling us for months now. So I'm slightly surprised he wants to call the kid after them, but, you know, it's his kid.
It's not normal to ask somebody's permission, though, is it?
No,
to use their name? Because normally, I mean, my kids, their middle names are their uncles' or aunties' names and family names. And once they were born, we let them know. And it was a really... they loved it. Or if somebody was to take my name, like one of the kids, if they did that one day...
It'd be great.
It's like an honour, isn't
Yeah,
it? You don't necessarily have to check first.
Camilla?
Well, I think sometimes names are discussed with the Queen, just out of kind of politeness, really. But it's not as if they were going to call her Elizabeth. I think it's the nature of them taking the Queen's own personal nickname, which, forgive me, but I've never really heard anyone else being called Lilibet in public or private life. Maybe there are such people, but I think it's the element of it being really like so closely associated with HM herself personally and being used by her own family members that makes it a little bit different to had they just simply decided to name the child Elizabeth.
Yeah, but what we don't know is whether or not they gave her a call and said, what do you think? She said, I'd be absolutely delighted. What a wonderful thing for you to do for me. Thank you very much indeed. That's the one side of the story we haven't heard.
Well, we haven't heard that, although we have had a steer perhaps that suggestions that she wasn't fully consulted might be right. Okay. So that's what we're trying to pick through this morning.
Well, let's pick through...
Constitutional crisis, isn't it?
I mean, it's a major...
The Cabinet will have to meet in emergency session in the Cobra room.
Yeah. Well,
it's a big story.
Unfortunately, they're all way too busy figuring out whether or not we are coming out of our full lockdown on June the 21st. Conflicting COVID stories on the front pages today. Guardian is leading with the news that Rishi Sunak is open to a 4-week delay to end the restrictions. Daily Mail claims that COVID curbs just don't add up, given that 97% of over 50s are now protected. The death rates are falling. Obviously, cases have jumped 90% in a week with this rapid Indian variant, but the death rate remains the lowest in 6 months. So it's, you know, it's twos and froms. Are we coming out on the 21st or not?
The Chancellor doesn't want to delay for 4 weeks, but he thinks he's lost the argument, so it's not worth having. Yeah, he's given up. He thinks that the decision has been taken. I'm not sure that's quite true yet, but I think, you know, if we were speaking a week ago or 10 days ago, I would still have said June 21st is still looking quite good. I think they're panicking a bit. They've had scientific advice. They hate to go against that. They don't bring other factors in that the scientists don't know about. And they're very worried about the spike in cases. And this Indian or Delta variant, I think we now have to call it, is more transmissible. What they haven't quite got the guts to do yet is to live with the break that has now happened between cases and hospitalizations, hospital admissions, and with deaths, because the vaccine has broken that link. So if you take, there's about, I think it's about 5,500 Indian variant cases, has resulted in only 126 hospitalizations, of which 86 were not vaccinated. So the numbers are smaller and smaller, but they're still a bit nervous, and I think they'll delay it for a bit, would be my guess.
So, Camilla, I mean, if Rishi Sunak's given up because it's inevitable from what you're saying, why don't they just tell us?
Because it's down to the Prime Minister, and he's said that he's going to make this announcement on Monday, June the 14th, so a week out. And equally, I think he's not going to make up his own mind until late on Sunday. There's been this mantra, hasn't there, that it's about data, not dates. Having said that, I agree with Andrew. I mean, actually, the COVID death rate, i.e. deaths from COVID, at the moment is 0.1%. So that is minimal. And equally, of course, there is going to be more of a record of cases if we are testing more than many other European nations. Yeah. So therefore, the case rate is high, but if hospitalisation rates are down and continuing to go down, and there are few people on ventilators and few people in intensive care, thank goodness, and indeed few people dying, then surely the original argument has to kick in that if the NHS is protected, then we need to go about our lives. As this pandemic goes to endemic, we have to live with it. It's not going to be erased. We can't close the borders forever. It's going to be around, but if people aren't dying from it, then we must get back to our ordinary lives.
Well, we've been saying for some time that, you know, I think us British, we're sort of very tolerant bunch of people, and mostly we've done as we've been told.
Indeed.
And you get to the point where we've been saying, how much longer can you do this before people begin to rebel? There's only so much we'll be prepared to take, especially when we look at the science. Andrew Lloyd Webber has vowed to let his theatres reopen on the 21st of June, despite possible restrictions still being in place. He said, "You'll have to arrest me to stop me reopening theatres on the 21st. He says he will have to sell 6 West End venues if lockdown isn't eased as promised. I mean, this is it's had a catastrophic financial impact on the theatre industry and many other industries. Is he right to say, right, that's it, I'm opening at full capacity, I can't afford not to. June the 21st is my date, I've looked at the signs.
No, he's not right. I mean, I understand the frustration. It's a terrible time for the West End, and the West End in London is it's our Hollywood. You know, it's one of the country's biggest assets and traditionally brings in millions of pounds of tourist money and so on. But, you know, he's subject to the law like the rest of us. And he has to follow it. It's so frustrating for us all. And frankly, if he's still solvent at this stage, another 2 or 3 weeks, frustrating as it is not going to make that much difference. If he was going to
he's already
by now.
He's remortgaged his London home, apparently.
Well, that probably got him about 100 million.
Camilla, I mean, this is, you know, this is an industry that's on its knees, isn't it? So you can understand the frustration here.
Absolutely. I mean, these people's lives and livelihoods, you know, have been put on hold for more than a year now. I agree with Andrew in the sense that I don't think Lloyd Webber or any other impresario is above the law. Having said that, it must be frustrating for him when there have been those kind of pilot raves going on in Manchester, and there's been an announcement that up to 10,000 people can now gather in a sports stadium, and yet still theatres are struggling. And we know the argument economically. They have to have full capacity in order for them to work. They can't just have half the people there watching these performances. You know, I'm personally hoping that there isn't a delay, but I think we're heading towards the inevitable slide of at least 2 weeks being put on that June the 21st date, as far as I can tell.
Well, let's wait and see. What is it, Monday we find out? Monday?
We'll be told on Monday, on the 14th, for what will happen on the 21st.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Listen, I wanted to come in today and thank you.
Ah,
that's nice.
well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's been
What are
good
we
having
being
you there
thankful
this year.
For being so kind. Wonderful.
Oh, Andrew, that's a lovely thing to say. Thank you.
That is very kind of you. Thank you.
And good luck on Sunday.
Thank you. Yeah, hope it goes well. Thank you.